This is Open to Hope Radio, featuring Dr. Gloria Horsley and her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley, coming to you on behalf of the Open to Hope Foundation, dedicated to those who are looking for hope after loss. Now, here's Dr. Gloria.
Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my co-host, Dr. Heidi Horsley. Heidi, hi from California.
Hi from New York City, Mom. Dr. Dale Larson is a professor in the Department of Counseling Psychology at Santa Clara University. He is a clinician and researcher and a national leader in end-of-life care and training. His award-winning book, The Helper's Journey, Working with People Facing Grief, Loss, and Life-Threatening Illness, conveys the inspiring vision of caregiving. Welcome to the show, Dale.
Oh, thank you, Heidi and Gloria. It's really a pleasure to be with you again.
Dale, I was curious, how did you get in the field of grief and loss?
Oh, well, that's always a complex question. I think, how do we find our way to what we do in our lives, with our careers? And I was bereaved as a 5-year-old. My brother died when I was 5, and I never really thought about that until much later in my career when I was lecturing about help the sibs grieve, that I'm sure Heidi can relate to. And someone in the audience said, well, Dale, do you think maybe this has something to do with the way you're talking about this, your own losses? Because I had at one point mentioned that my brother had died, and I never really thought about it. But it wasn't an area that I was really specializing in, but I always found it to be an important message. And I realized I was talking to myself, and maybe, that's what really made me tuned in. And I think our losses really do deepen our empathy. And for many people in the end-of-life arena, their helping journeys were launched by a loss, by an awareness of a need that wasn't being met. And so I think that, we're wounded healers in a positive sense, in that our wounds have deepened our empathy and have provided kind of a guiding force in our careers and our helping journey. So that's how I can think about it, honestly. But of course, it was the times. I was at the University of Chicago and looked into the seminar room where Kubler-Ross was teaching seminars before her 1969 landmark book came out. And it was in the air, and hospice was taking off. So I was also part of a social movement that's, was taking place. We have to find hope. We have to find a way to live in a world in which loss is inescapable. It's not always easy, but when you've done that, then you know it can be done. You have a sense of efficacy about it, and we know that you can go through this, that there is a way through despair, but it's not an easy journey always. When I was a child, my parents never talked about the loss of my brother. My father never mentioned my brother's name again until his death, to me at least. So, it's interesting how families cope with it. But yeah, I think we don't want to, I don't want to reduce it to exposure. I think it's something, that because we've been exposed, we're desensitized. I don't think it's about desensitization at all, really. It's about understanding and having a little bit of acquired bravery, if you will, maybe acquired resilience. The research shows that, in fact, when people endure lots of stressful situations, they do become, in different ways, often more resilient. Mm-hmm. And it's not always a damaging experience at all. You learn how to deal with these difficult situations. And if you think about the rest of life, that's true. If you're taking difficult courses all the time, you learn how to deal with difficult courses in school. Right. You learn how to deal with travail and with, and this is different, and more powerful, but it's still somewhat the same thing.
Well, Dale, I wanted to get to your book on the Helper's Journey, because it is a book for working with people facing grief, loss, and life-threatening illnesses. It's kind of for the professional. So if you're working in this field, you definitely want to get it. It's a terrific book. But I just found some little nuggets in there that I wanted to bring out for our audience today who's out there, because we are helping people also. If you've had a loss, say when my son Scott was killed, I had 3 other kids and a husband, and I happened to be a therapist, and weirdly enough, in the area of grief and loss. So I was reading this and I was thinking to myself, wow, I could have used some of these points for myself. One of them being, you talk about if you're a caregiver, you need to have empathy for yourself. I think that is so true. Can you talk a little bit about empathy?
Well, I think really what I was getting at is being tuned into yourself and not just suppressing all your feelings because they're difficult. I think we have to be friendly to these experiences in a sense that we have to be open. We have to accept where we're at, meet ourselves where we're at, just like we try to meet others who are helping where they're at in the moment. So there's a kind of a mindful stance toward oneself that we need to have in order to stay connected with ourselves and know what we need to do for ourselves. If you're blocking what you're experiencing, then you're not going to allow your emotional experiences to kind of tell you what you need to do. And I think, we need to get grief working for us. So the dilemma for the bereaved family member who needs to be a caregiver also is you're dealing with both at the same time, your own grief and the grief of those around you. And that can get a little complicated at times. And I think that's why very often, we need to bring in some additional support in the form of counseling or support groups. It takes a team to really deal with some of these situations.
Let me say, Dale, you are by yourself. I'm by myself out there right now, guys. Okay, so I need some help. I don't have a team. Can you talk a little bit about compartmentalizing and setting limits? Because I think that that's something that people out in our audience can do.
Well, I think we all, in the helping role as a professional or volunteer, we need to set limits. We need to compartmentalize. You need to have a life away from being a caregiver.
Okay, now remember, I can't get a life away from it. I'm in it because I'm with my family. So I think, in reading your book, I think that you can compartmentalize. We do compartmentalize. You have to. You go to work, you leave your family, and you go to the job. Then you come home to your family again. But, I think about taking some time out for yourself. And maybe listening to some music or whatever.
Well, there's respite. Yeah, I think taking a break, it applies across the board, whether we're dealing with our own stress as a caregiver or we're dealing with our own journey through grief and loss. We have to go back and forth between being in it and being in that intense emotional experience, and then also taking a break. And in the kind of model we have now, the dual process model of grieving, we have loss and restoration. So you go back and forth between loss and restoration. You don't stay in one or the other. And restoration has built into it some of those breaks and the getting away from it. And I think it's hard for family members because you always feel guilty whenever your loved one's suffering. If they're suffering, I have to suffer with them every single second. And it's really hard to even go to a movie or anything. And think about Alzheimer's caregivers. I mean, they are really stuck, or hospice caregivers, because it's a round-the-clock kind of situation, and they need respite.
And you know what we can do right now? We can give our audience permission to do that. They need to do it, don't they?
Well, they do. I really believe they do, and it's hard to give oneself permission because you care so much. But you're going to bring more back to your loved one if you do it. That's the kind of the reality. You'll be more able to give if you give some to yourself. I mean, caregiving is all about finding a balance between caring for others and a balance between giving to yourself and caring for others.
And a lot of our audience has surviving children, so they really need to give to themselves so that they'll be able to continue to parent their surviving children. We got this idea out of University of Arizona when we started the 9/11 study, and what it was is it's called Family Fun Time, and we went into the homes, and one of the assignments we gave the families is that they needed to establish family fun time where they actually took a break from their grief. So we were not only giving them permission, but we were giving them a homework assignment so that they felt less guilty. And when we went back and said, what was the thing that you found the most helpful as far as the interventions that we did during our time with you, they said it was the family fun time.
Dale, talk about changing your oil. I like that for our audience out there.
Well, the idea there is that we're all going to have stress, and in the context we're talking about, there could be a lot of stress. And once you have stress, the stress cycle is initiated. You have a whole set of stress hormones coursing through your veins, And then you have to get rid of those. And the best way to get rid of those is, I call it changing the oil, but that's exercise, or that's a hyper-metabolic kind of strategy. And then there's a hypo-metabolic strategy, which means less metabolic, lower metabolic level, which would be like meditation, or even just prayer and sitting and mindfulness meditation would be wonderful in that regard. And that gets some of the lactic acid out of your system, and also some of these stress hormones, the catecholamines and everything that are really causing us problems. So you need to change the oil. The ideal thing is to change the situation. We can't always change the situation. Then we can change how we view it, which is another stress management strategy. But then finally, if you can't make too much headway with either of those strategies, then a little bit further downstream you have changing the oil or exercising. Exercise is one of the best ways to take care of yourself if you can do it. I know it's hard in New York City sometimes to get out there with the weather, but find a place to exercise, and it's universally recognized in the literature as a great stress antidote and as a cure also for depression, because it gets your system moving and improves your self-esteem and all kinds of things.
Thanks for listening to the show today, and tune again next week to get more help with grief relief. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my co-host, Dr. Heidi Horsley, and God bless.
You've been listening to Open to Hope Radio, hosted by Drs. Gloria and Heidi Horsley. Like today's edition, all of our past programs are available on demand at opentohope.com, along with helpful articles, videos, resources, and links to help get you through the toughest time of your life. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and sign up for our monthly newsletter. Again, that's opentohope.com. Check it out today. Then be sure to stop by next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, when we'll be posting another edition of Open to Hope Radio. Remember, others have been where you are. They made it through, and you can too, as long as you're open to hope.